Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dailey Blend podcast. It has been a minute. I've left you hanging, internet friends. I am so sorry. I've been traveling and moving around the great states of America and just haven't had a chance to get in front of a microphone for this show. But fear not. I am not traveling for a couple days, weeks, if you will, and I have full intentions of reinvigorating this show, both on the Friday Top 5, the weekly rundown, and we have some sound off episodes teed up. We haven't recorded them yet. There's always a little challenge when you have to kind of coordinate with a guest, but I fully expect to have a few episodes in your ears in the coming weeks. Before we jump into the show, I want to remind you it is on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, YouTube, and of course, daileyblend.com. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to the show. Also, check us out on Instagram and over at Threads. That is Meta's new clone of Twitter. We'll see how that works. But with that all out of the way, let's jump into this week's episode. So I've been traveling, and as I mentioned at the start of the show, and one of the big things that I typically do when I get on the road and then while I'm on the road is I'm looking for music to listen to besides just sort of my I need to fall asleep on the plane and get a little quick nap in. This is more like I've woken up and I need some house music or something to just kind of knock through my to-dos or get ready for whatever meeting or event I'm flying into. And so this episode is going to be very focused on music, and then, of course, we're going to talk about some sneakers. So starting off, I want to run through some of the music I've been listening to more recently and just give you a little background on why I like the mix and then some bit on the artist. So the first one is, or first story or mix, I suppose is the right way to say this, is a session with Atrak live from his Los Angeles house. What I like about this one is Atrak, if you have followed the show, you know I'm a huge fan, both his production and his DJing. He does a ton of what I'll call battle mixing or scratching, but he does it in more of a party rocking mentality, so it's not just like 5-minute scratch sessions, although he does do those too. And so in this particular video, you got to listen to the set, you got to see him dancing around and moving, but you also got to see his hands on top of his DJ gear. So you can kind of see what he's doing on turntables and through his Rain Atrak Edition mixer, which I thought was pretty fun and interesting to see someone of his caliber, how he's kind of manipulating things, using effects, using the mixer, beat juggling. And I said 2 turntables. He was actually using CDJ 3000s on this one. So go check that out. The video was sponsored by a recording studio company. So the idea is that you would watch the video and then go to one of their recording studio spaces to use it for bands or DJing. Ironically, he recorded at home. I thought they probably should have had him record it at the space. But regardless, enjoy the mix. All right, second up is Jenn Getz and Alfie, which are a duo out of Dubai. They're a female duo who, plays deep house, tech house. I learned about them through the Toolroom night guest mix series. I watched them on YouTube, but I've featured the SoundCloud mix because that's what I was more jamming to on the road. So it's about a 30-minute mix. You get to kind of hear some of the songs that have influenced them and then some of their original production. I have a high suspicion I'm going to be featuring them on a Music Monday coming up because they've got some new tracks and remixes coming out through Toolroom and I think another label. I'm blanking on the name. But it's always cool to see females doing their thing, and kudos to living in the UAE and kind of making that work and kind of bringing a party scene to that part of the world. All right, third story or mix is everyone's favorite Dad Trapz / I put a peace sign or hand in my face for all pictures is DJ Benzi. Benzi does a ton of remixes and original productions and edits. And so I've listened to Benzi for like 10 years now, and his mixes are always jam-packed with just a ton of tracks. This one has 38 tracks. The mix is Benzi Dad Trapz 3, and the album artwork is just fantastic. It's Will Ferrell in a Speedo burned to a crisp. So there's 38 tracks. A lot of them are edits and remakes, mostly by Benzi, but he's got some other stuff on there. And, this is like my perfect running music. I sometimes listen to this when I'm in the gym as well. But I'm just a big fan of all of the mixes Benzi's done. What I did is I linked the mix for this summer, but I also put a link to the Spotify playlist if you're a Spotify person, and then a link to his SoundCloud, which you can go download just a plethora of mixes. I'm talking 100 hours of mixes across his different mix series. So kudos to Benzi for continuing to kind of move the needle, like 10 years strong, probably more than that for me. And, let me know what you think of that mix. All right, the fourth mix, and this is the last of the series, is from DIPLO, and it's a mix from Space Miami. And if you know DIPLO, you know he, started with Paper Planes and doing his own parties in outside of, Philly or in Philly. And, his sound has just totally evolved. You can't try to classify this guy. He continues to push barriers in all directions. I think I've seen him do great sets at Burning Man, great sets at Stagecoach, which is a country festival. He was just at the Kappa event over in Europe playing techno with the techno folks, and this Space set is fantastic. He does a really nice job of mixing like kind of house tracks that work at Miami, and then his own productions that have been sort of remixed for Space. It's a great 2.5 hour set. Highly recommend going and having a listen. I should note, follow his Instagram. It's pretty funny and humorous for all the traveling and stuff he does. All right, moving from music, of course, we're going to finish up the show talking about sneakers. And Wired Magazine, of all places, did a sneaker feature with Jeff Staple. If you've listened to my podcast, or if you've seen some of the artwork I've done for this show or other shows, it's heavily inspired by Jeff. Jeff is a designer. He owned Reed Space. There's just coincidence that my name is Reed. He started a clothing brand called Staple and Staple Pigeon, and the pigeon is his logo. From doing really cool collaboration with Nike, he really made the pigeon dunk famous or infamous, however you want to think about it, and that's really become his icon or logo for that brand. But he walked through some of the top sneakers and kind of talking through the design process, and I always enjoy listening to Jeff talk about design, specifically with sneakers. I've listened to countless episodes of his Business of Hype podcast. I've linked that on DailyBlend.com. If you've not had a chance to check out or listen to the Business of Hype's podcast, Jeff does a great job of coming prepared and walking through interviews with individuals. And you can really tell that not only, like I said, he's prepared, but a lot of the folks that he's interviewing with, he's done some sort of collaboration, either on his own brands or brands that they're working on. And it's really cool to see someone so diverse doing so many things with the backbone being creativity and design. So kudos to Jeff, continuing to move sneaker culture and kind of, what do you call it, lifestyle, culture, if you want to say that, forward. Okay, so that wraps it up for this episode of the Friday Top 5. And like I said, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to the show on Instagram, Twitter, and I guess Threads now. Don't forget to follow, subscribe to the show, download it on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Also putting them up on YouTube now, and that's Dailey Blend, or at Dailey Blend on YouTube. Coming down the pipe is hopefully episode 150 of the Dailey Blend podcast, which is my original podcast, which is mostly house and tech house music. Episode 150 is looking like it's going to be a bunch of EDM bangers from kind of 2009, 2010 to like 2014, 15. I've downloaded all the tracks and I'm starting to arrange it now, but pretty excited about that mix. It felt sort of nostalgic for me, just thinking back all the festivals and shows and how much I love those tracks over the years. Don't forget to check out me on Instagram myself. That's at Reed Dailey. I'm also on Twitter. And, let's connect on the web. Let's connect in person. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Negronis. Go check out episode number 6 of Negronis with Greg that just dropped. And with that said, enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.